The New Tech Times, a video magazine for the electronic age. In this edition, robots from fantasy to the factory. Will they prove to be friends or foes? Also, calling the plays by computer, a sports new technology love story. Later, a commentary by Chicago Sun-Times reporter Herb Gould, and a story about the film industry putting computers to work. All this and more in this edition of the New Tech Times.
The New Tech Times is brought to you through a grant from Wausau Insurance Companies. Times change. Wausau works.
Hi, I'm Nicholas Johnson. Your response to the New Tech Times fall season has been so positive that we're going to be back soon with 16 more new shows. All of us here at the New Tech Times want to thank you for that support. And meanwhile, for the next 3 weeks, we're going to replay some of the more popular segments, especially for those of you who have recently joined the New Tech Times regulars. Well, here's my new best friend and co-anchor, Hero. And just when you were beginning to think we don't have heroes anymore.
Please turn off that light, it hurts my eyes.
Now listen, Hero, if you're going to take over my job, you got to get used to the lights. It's part of television. You know, you can make one of these things yourself. I mean, if you can follow directions in these 1,200 pages of manuals from Heath. We hear about robots taking over factories. Are they about to enter our homes? Is this a joke or some kind of toy? Well, Hero's sales have far exceeded Heath's expectations. And there's some enthusiasts who are predicting a $20 billion robot market 15 years from now. So here's another look at the report Ken Munt gave you a few weeks ago.
You asked for it.
My brain is bigger than yours. And now, Electro, I command you to walk back. Back.
Robots. They've actually been a part of our lives for a long time. The first ones you saw were probably in the movies or on old TV shows. They were a little frightening, but a little unbelievable, too. They became more believable and more frightening when they started taking away jobs. But now a new generation of robots is here. Robots not in the movies, but maybe in our homes. Historian and visionary Bob Malone has had a love affair with robots for almost 20 years.
Robots really started as automatons, which is, self-acting devices. The Persians made them work. They actually created some very simple things. They had water lifters, they had cup pourers and other things, and that was in the 14th century. By the time Europe got itself organized and created their own kind of highly crafted object, the automaton, in the 17th and 18th century, they had these incredible music boxes, watchworks, and other things to work from. And then with the advent of Karl Čapek's play R.U.R., Rossum's Universal Robots, the word robot was invented in 1921. And with that word, suddenly, boom, everybody adopted it. There was a new word in the vocabulary like Jeep and other things later on that became a universal word. And then by 60s, people were investigating industrial robots. By 10 years, everybody, it'll be just like television, it'll be just like radio. Everybody will have it, and they'll have it for different reasons. They're not going to all wash windows, they're not all going to vacuum floors. You're going to have robots that do very particular things, manuscripts, you name it, hobbies, all kinds of strange things.
One place where robots are doing some strange things is the Robotorium in New York City.
See, it's just going to do you can make one little move or you can make a whole bunch of moves. And pretty soon what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to get this kind of a robot, which you can always upgrade.
Most of the robots here are only toys. Still, Robotier and Robotorium owner Debbie Huglin is working on giving her customers what they really want.
When are you going to have something that'll vacuum?
You'll be able to get a traveling base in about a year. You can get linear and XY slide bases right now.
Can I program it to make strings?
Yes, that's one of the main things is it's got what's called a floating hand, which means you can use it to write with or you can use it to carry.
Our domestic crises may not be solved at the Robotorium just yet, though our Christmas shopping could be. But at the Androbot in San Jose, California, they're creating a family of home robots that aren't just novelties.
And you are in the year 1 AB.
We
currently are working on 4 products. I'll name them for you quickly. I think you'll get a kick out of it. Androman, FRED, which is an acronym for Friendly Robotic Educational Device. Topo, which is a peripheral to a computer, and the topo comes from topography, which means surface or terrain. And Bob, B-O-B, which is brains on board. He will become, as he evolves, the world's first artificially intelligent personal robot, self-contained.
Your humble servant.
Bob, get me a beer. Bob has been programmed to go into the kitchen and get me a beer and bring it to me in my chair.
Let's see if there are any left.
Bob walks and he talks, he sees, he thinks, he makes decisions for himself. He's going to make it as convenient for me as he can. He's going to turn so that the can is facing me.
This Coke's for you.
Bob can't really think, of course, but as long as you have an Andro fridge and $2,000, he can at least serve beer. Will home robots always be just expensive metal servants? Historian Bob Malone is hopeful that someday they'll actually make us more human.
What it's going to do is it's going to force us to become far more human. What it's going to do is say, just doing dumb work isn't enough. We have to use our brains and our sensitivity to react to each other, to react to the environment, and to learn how to react to this more sophisticated technology. So what it's doing is going to force the entire human race to become more intelligent, more sensitive.
Whether or not Hero can someday make us more intelligent and sensitive, today is of greatest interest to hobbyists and educators. But remember, you know, that was true of radio in the early 1920s, of home computers in the 1970s. Today's exotic electronics hobby has a way of becoming tomorrow's essential household item. We haven't talked about hobbyists before in the New Tech Times, and yet they're an essential element in our electronics story. They're doing something much more significant than just having a good time playing with their toys. Amateur radio operators, they've been back in the news in recent weeks. Hams gave us our first news of events in Grenada. Recently, they did some out-of-this-world communicating. Here's Dave Iverson's report.
1, solid motor ignition, and liftoff. Liftoff of Columbia and the first flight of the European Space Agency's Space Lab.
When Space Shuttle 9 blasted off, much was made of a number of landmarks. The first non-American was aboard, as was the first non-astronaut. But it was also the first time an American space mission was probably greeted with as many yawns as it was applause. It wasn't even the lead story on some newscasts. The Earthbound Greyhound strike grabbed that honor. Space, it seems, has become more commonplace. In a sense, the space missions have come full circle. It used to be that only presidents talked to astronauts in orbit.
Well, congratulations on the continued success of your mission. I understand you're even ahead of schedule.
Well, we like to stay that way, Mr. President.
Now, of course, an Earthbound former astronaut is running for president. And even the high-tech, out-of-this-world hardware the space program epitomizes has taken a curious twist. In Space Shuttle 9, astronauts talked not just to mission control or presidents, they talked to back porch ham radio operators.
So many fellows calling me, I couldn't keep them all straight. So I got Q5 signals from W7 Roger George Hotel, W5 Sugar William X-Ray, W5 Uncle Quebec, and W5 Foxtrot Item Victor.
Astronaut Owen Garriott was a ham radio operator long before he flew into space. In this pre-flight simulation, he demonstrated the equipment he'd later use in orbit.
This is the equipment that we'll be using on board the spacecraft. This is basically our 2-meter transceiver. There must be hundreds of thousands of these around the world and in the United States.
A transceiver, a battery-operated station, and an antenna stuck in a space shuttle window. Not exactly space-age stuff. Still, it enabled Garriott to chat with ham operators across the country.
We will look for those orbits on which I'm going to be off duty. Then we'll see what part of the world's surface the spacecraft will be passing over. Then we have to check to see what the spacecraft attitude is, because if the spacecraft is oriented so that the window out through which our antenna is pointed is out to the stars, of course we cannot talk to the Earth. And so when the spacecraft attitude is such that the window is looking toward the Earth, then we can attempt some communication.
The purpose of all this, Garriott says, is to show that space is indeed becoming more accessible. You don't have to be president to talk to astronauts anymore.
The principal impact will be as a demonstration to the hundreds of thousands of amateurs and hams, not only in the U.S. but all over the world, that they can indeed play a personal role in space activities.
There are over 1.5 million ham radio operators worldwide, 130,000 alone in this country and in Canada. Their organization is called the Amateur Radio Relay League.
It is a technical hobby, but it's not one that really should scare people away. Most amateurs today are using equipment which is manufactured. They assemble it into a station which meets their particular needs, but this isn't any different than, for example, the hi-fi enthusiast who has a wide variety of equipment available and puts together the components that meets his particular needs. And I don't think most of us regard hi-fi as being that technical that we would shy away from it for that reason.
For most people, space remains a far frontier to be experienced as a living room spectator, not as a participant. Space Shuttle 9 changed some of that for thousands of basement-based ham operators.
But now there will be a chance for people, persons, to really be involved in two-way communications from space.
Tell you're steely-eyed from here.
From space to Springfield, using new tech or old, the common ground is still communication.
Amateur radio has come a long way since the days of the spark gap Morse code transmitters that helped create the AM radio industry we know today. Today's hams are bouncing signals off the moon and using their computers to operate transmitters. Becoming a radio amateur was one of the smartest things I ever did as a non-technical person trying to understand these new tech times. And if you'd like to know more, you might want to drop a line to the folks who helped us prepare that last story. ARRL, 225 Main Street, Newington, Connecticut, 06111. That's 225 Main Street, Newington, Connecticut, 06111. Well, ham operators may be communicating with astronauts, but most Americans still experience space as a form of fantasy and the dazzling special effects of the movies. It's the new technology that helped shape that graphic art, including the animation in the opening of our show. A month ago, we showed you this report by Barry Stoner.
These are illustrations by Paul Zander. They could have been created by paint and brush on canvas, but they were not. They are electronically generated images. They were produced at the New York Institute of Technology with a digital pen, an electronic tablet, and a computerized palette. Here's how it's done.
Some of the basics of the machine is the fact that the pen has an antenna and a microswitch. And the electronic tablet is filled with wires, horizontal and vertical. The pen, when you get the antenna close to the tablet, you get a cursor on the upper screen. So that shows you where you're at. And that terminal holds the menu, so you think of the terms as buttons, because every time I press down on the pen, something happens. And the lower monitor carries the picture. Now, to select colors, all I have to do is take the cursor, touch the color I want to use, and the palette disappears so I can work under here if I want to. But now the color's in the pen, and you simply draw with it just like any other pen. And when I want the palette to come back, I move the cursor off the bottom of the screen and then pick another color. And also, I have a fill button. Now, this allows you to pick up colors from the screen and fill areas solid or enclosed. Now, of course, this is much faster than paint. And say I want to look at some more color schemes, all I have to do now is to go in and ask the computer for some ideas. And so automatically, I'm going to come up with 255 more color schemes.
Zander and others are using new technology to create visual art. A traditional animation process could have been used to create the opening sequence for the New Tech Times, but it was not. This animation was produced with the help of a computer. One drawing is recorded at the beginning of the action. Then at the end of the action, another drawing is entered. The computer fills in all the drawings in between the beginning and the end of the action. The artist can even control the speed of the action at the touch of a button. Another time-consuming process in traditional animation is the painting of each cell. With a computer, it's as simple as touching the electronic pen to the tablet. The look of traditional animation can be preserved, even though, as in this case, it's generated electronically. In the future, the illusion of three-dimensional animated worlds may be commonplace, as computers bring new possibilities to the electronic artist. But when it comes to creating strange new worlds through visual illusion, few can compete with the success of John Dykstra and his team of visual magicians at Apogee Studios in Los Angeles. They created the special effects for the first Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, the first Superman movie, and many other films and commercials.
We use all manner of high technology, and it's really fun. I mean, for most people to come into contact with as much technology as we come into contact with on a daily basis, they would have to run 20 different companies. So this is excitement, and it's got a little magic in it, and it's got little movies in it, and I love recording images, and most of these people love recording images, so I don't know, it's kind of a super garage with a way to maintain itself.
To create these illusions, a computer is used to control the movement of the camera so precisely that multiple images can be combined to create satellites rushing through space or a computer's eye view of its operator. Although Dykstra's special effects have been spectacular, he puts them in perspective.
Effects always are an element of storytelling. That's all they are. So, I mean, the magic, the illusion isn't there to stand alone. It isn't to impress people with what magic tricks you can do. It's to tell a story.
And when it comes to the role of new computer technology in the creative process, John Dykstra may speak for many visual artists.
You can give somebody the most sophisticated device in the world, the capabilities of which are enormous. A computer is a perfect example of that. And some people will make, you know, great things out of it, and other people will try to duplicate things they've seen done in other mediums, and other people will take that device and make, you know, they'll make doilies that are terrible doilies. I mean, a good doily would be good, but a terrible doily is, you know. So I think it's a tool. It's like anything else.
In these new tech times, the artist, the animator, and the movie maker will find the computer a useful tool, but it will never replace the magic of the creative process.
The stunning truth of the new technology is that what appears in large corporations and on movie sets today may be in our living rooms tomorrow. But what's in many of our living rooms today, during this holiday season, is families gathered around the beautiful flickering colored lights of television sets showing football games. Last fall, we told you how computers are affecting the world of sports, and we thought we'd prepare you for the coming flood of playoffs and bowl games by repeating this report prepared by Dave Iverson.
Sports cliches are as important to the national pastime as hot dogs and beer. Read the sports pages during baseball season, and you're bound to find at least one of the following quotes. I seen the ball pretty good. I threw the ball pretty good. Or, I hit the ball pretty good. But baseball, the game that made famous wordsmiths out of Casey Stengel and Yogi Berra, baseball is now joining, you guessed it, the New Tech Times.
When you see the capability of a computer to put all that stuff, gather more of it, get it back to you quicker, the potential is actually, you know, it's unlimited.
Tony La Russa is the manager of the Chicago White Sox, the champs of the American League West. La Russa used a computer this past season to catalog what certain hitters did against certain pitchers and vice versa. Never mind that the Sox lost to Baltimore in the league championship series. La Russa's White Sox obviously play pretty good, but there's more to this story. Listen again to the manager.
Right now it's only a couple years into it, so our database is not real extensive, but as it grows, I think it'll have more capability.
Database? Did we hear database? Why, pretty soon we may hear ball players saying things like, I interface with the ball pretty good. At least White Sox ball players might. After all, they have a manager who doesn't ask questions. He queries.
Well, you don't have a lot of time to be, you know, querying the computer for, you know, what's your best matchup. You have to do that on the spot.
Queries and databases. It's enough to give Yogi Berra a slip disk drive. But baseball is, after all, gone for another year. Now footballs fill the air. Surely computer printouts won't replace running for daylight. Yes, on the campus of Southern Methodist University, the home of Mustang Mania and the Pony Express, the alma mater of Dandy Don Meredith, yes, at SMU, the computer has found a home. The program is called PASS, or PASS. It compiles information about upcoming opponents, their favorite plays and formations. It gives SMU coaches a better notion of what to expect on the football field.
We may want to know all the plays that an opponent has run inside the 10-yard line going in to score. Well, that would take a number of man-hours that we just don't have time to do. But we can feed the information in, the rough information into the computer, and it'll organize it and send it back to us in a way that we can use it. It's a big time saver for us.
So it's second and 13. Second and 13 at the minus or plus 46.
If you thought manager LaRussa was something, wait till you listen in on these next conversations. The trick here is to translate football language into computer language. The coaches analyze the game films, noting the key information they want the computer to catalog.
The formation strength to us would be like left. That backfield would be I. The receiver set would be pro. So we would just put that down as we take the information off, put it on a form.
Whatever the terms, the computer doesn't seem to object and prints out the results in hours.
They've got a lot of plays, but the plays that they run the most is what the biggest number there. Anybody can figure that out. Play 16, they run 13 times as opposed to these others. So if I had to pick one play that I would prepare my team to stop, one of their favorite plays, it would be 16 draw.
But what to do about 16 draw, whatever that is? The answer is the game plan. Now that's a nice simple sports phrase, game plan.
Are you going to fold that? Yeah, I think if we fold it, see, in all those 40 fronts, that middle linebacker is reading through that center's block. If we block him back and pull our guard around and fold on him, then I believe we can hold him steady in there and he won't flow to the play.
Football terminology is clearly taxing enough without the benefit of a computerized, pardon the expression, database. But how did the game plan finally work? After all, to paraphrase Vince Lombardi, winning, not computing, is the only thing.
And the kick is good.
Part of the game plan worked fine, but the Mustangs, sad to say, had a few human errors no computer program could correct.
In motion is Adamson, who checked in. McElhaney pitched it. The fullback, Charles, did not see the ball. He did not see it, and Texas has it at the 40.
SMU played pretty good, but not good enough to defeat highly rated Texas. But it wouldn't be fair to blame the 15-12 defeat on the computer. After all, a computer is only as good as the information it gets.
It's a confidence builder for us, too, in that we feel that, you know, if we feed information into the computer in the right manner, then we will get mistake-free information back. The human error is eliminated from it. So, of course, if you put mistakes into the computer, you'll get mistakes out of it, you know.
Now, of course, we're not saying the computer received wrong information before the SMU-Texas game, but you have to wonder if it maybe got just a little confused.
So the guard comes in and say, left eye pro 49 load option into the boundary, you know, so.
What was that, Coach?
So the guard comes in and say, left eye pro 49 load option into the boundary, you know, so.
Could it be that it's not computer language that's the problem, but our own? One last word from Tony LaRussa.
We haven't got it really online like we really need.
Or as Yogi Berra liked to say, it ain't over till it's over.
As it happens, it isn't over yet for SMU. The computer-assisted Mustangs will appear in the Sun Bowl soon. Their software sharpened, their databases lean and mean. Fortunately, not everyone takes computers and sports quite this seriously. Here's this week's commentary from Chicago Sun-Times columnist and New Tech Times contributor, Herb Gould.
Go ahead, put a computer in the dugout. Let your Apple tell your slow-footed shortstop exactly where to play. Hit the ball right at him. If he's wearing a Cub uniform, he's still going to muff it. When it comes to decision-making, I'll take manager Billy Martin over Commodore 64 any day. Now, the NFL, that's an entirely different story. The NFL couldn't exist without computers. Pro football was using computers when the Defense Department was still skeptical about Xerox machines. What do you think Dallas Cowboy coach Tom Landry is hiding under that houndstooth hat anyway? A Coleco Atom or a balding head? And the NFL front office. Without an Atari 800, it would take them a month of Monday nights just to figure out who made the playoffs. If you're still not convinced, just consider the millions of cab drivers and other culture lovers who bet on pro football every weekend. They need a six-pack of floppy disks just to figure out the results, not to mention the point spreads. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to call my Atari.
From sports to robots. That wraps it up for this week. I'm Nicholas Johnson.
And I'm Hero. Join us next week on the New Tech Times.
Hero, that's join us next week on the New Tech Times. See you next week.
The New Tech Times has been brought to you through a grant from Wausau Insurance Companies. Times change. Wausau works.
For discount information and copies of the booklets How to Buy a Home Computer and How to Buy a Telephone, send $1 to the New Tech Times, 821 University Avenue, Madison, Wisconsin, 53706.